Hello, this is Mrs. Sturgeon about to explain how to graph compound inequalities. So the reason it's called a compound inequality is because you're graphing multiple inequalities on the same number line at the same time. So it might sound scary, but it's not that bad. We're going to go step by step. Here we go. Now, for this first set of examples, we're focusing on what are called AND statements. So you're graphing one inequality and another inequality, and we're going to visually talk about what that looks like and what that means. So first, what I would like us to do is graph x is greater than -3. So I will start by doing an open circle, because it's greater than, not greater than or equal to, an open circle on -3. Okay, and it says it's greater than, so I'm going to be shading in the numbers that are greater than -3. Okay, so that's going to be everything over here, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, all those numbers are greater than -3, so I'm going to go ahead and shade that way, and my arrow should be facing the same way as where I was shading. Okay, so I did that on one number line. For this first example, I will show you on separate number lines, and then we will put them together. So the next inequality is x is less than or equal to 4. So since it's less than or equal to, I'm going to go ahead and put a closed circle on 4. And less than or equal to means I should be picking numbers that are actually less than or equal to 4. So 3, 2, 1, all that stuff. So it's facing this way. So you might notice, if I were to think about putting these on the same number line, the arrows are facing different directions. They're kind of facing each other. Okay? So when I graph this as a compound inequality, so far I did it one at a time, but the actual answer to what this graph should look like, I will put on the bottom number line here. So basically, I need to put my open circle on -3, my closed circle on +4 like I had for those previous two number lines. Okay, and now since the arrows are facing each other, the only thing that I need to shade is basically where they're overlapping. All right, so they're overlapping. We shaded this side of the open circle. We shaded this side of the closed circle. So that is my final answer. I shouldn't have any shading going outside of those two dots. An AND statement looks like this, where basically you have two dots and the shading happens in between. Let's talk about OR statements. So for this example, we're starting with x is less than -2. So again, less than means we have an open circle. Whenever you don't have the line underneath the symbol, that means you have an open circle. So I'm going to find -2, put an open circle. Less than -2, those are numbers that are basically more negative. So -3, -4, all that stuff. Okay, so that's where my arrow should be facing. Next one, we have x is greater than or equal to 1. So I'll put a closed circle on 1. Anytime you have that line underneath, it needs to be a closed circle. Okay, and greater than or equal to 1, that's 2, 3, 4, 5, all the numbers to the right of 1. So if I were to put this on the same plane, so again, my bottom number line is the actual final answer. So I have -2 shading this way. I have +1 shading this way. So notice my OR statement for my final answer. Again, final answer is down here. My OR statement has two arrows facing opposite directions. Or opposite, start with the same letter. So hopefully that helps you remember that OR statements should have arrows facing opposite directions. Let's do one example more of each of these types, and then we'll be done. So for something like this, where you have an inequality, we're looking at the top example here, -4 is less than x is less than or equal to 2. So for an example like this, I'm going to start with -4, and the sign that's closest to -4 is a less than sign. So what I'm going to do is use an open circle on -4. And then less than or equal to 2, I'm going to use a closed circle on 2. And here's the thing. When you have a compound inequality that is written this way, where the inequality symbols are facing the direction that they're facing, this is automatically an AND statement. So, sorry, that D does not look good. The AND statement means that I'm going to be shading in between the dots. So I'm going to go ahead and come over here, shade in between the dots for my and statement, and that's my graph. Okay, so for the final example here, we have x is greater than or equal to 3, or x is less than 0. So same as before, I'm going to go ahead and place my dots. So if I'm greater than or equal to 3, that means a closed circle on 3. If I'm less than 0, that means I need to be an open circle on 0. And because of the fact that this has an or in the statement, I know that my arrows are going to be facing opposite directions. So I will just go ahead and shade the appropriate directions and then check to make sure that I actually did this right. So let's think about this. X is less than 0. Okay, so those are definitely numbers that are less than 0. -1, -2, -3, all those numbers are definitely less than 0. Or I can have x is greater than or equal to 3. Those are the appropriate numbers, 4, 5, 6, so on. So that's how you graph compound inequalities.